Okay.
Thank you.
So I guess we can go ahead and get started. Does that sound good, Frank?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Well, welcome to everyone. Thank you for spending the next hour with us. This is Dr. Frank Schaller, and I'm Jill Peltzer. We are members of the marketing work group that's part of the engagement committee. And today we're going to talk about how to have a social media presence for disseminating your scholarship. So Frank, I am going to turn it over to you just to introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Frank. I am a nurse practitioner and I work as an assistant professor in the School of Nursing at Eastern Michigan University. I'm in my 4th year there right now. And I have worked as a family nurse practitioner, mostly in the emergency department and urgent care setting for the last 4 years or so. So welcome, very nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Frank. And I'm Jill Peltzer. I am an associate professor and a clinical nurse specialist at KU School of Nursing. And I am not a social media influencer by any means. I am very interested, however, in how we can disseminate our scholarship to the general public and work with a number of patient and community groups and helping scientists to be able to distill their science to bite-sized chunks that are understandable by everyone. So our objectives today are to discuss social media as a tool for disseminating scholarship, develop and enhance skills in using social media, explain how to manage trolling on social media, and create messaging for dissemination on social media. So why is dissemination important? The National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine released a study in 2017, Communicating Science Effectively. And there were 5 points that they discussed about why dissemination of science is important. Number 1 is to share current research, to share our science, and as they said, to just share the excitement of science. 2 was to increase public awareness for science as a useful way to understand and navigate the world. And they said that this goal assumes that people who have more knowledge about and are more comfortable with science are going to be more willing and able to use science, knowledge from science in their everyday lives. Number 3 is to increase understanding and knowledge of science related to specific issues. So scientists who are disseminating their information may want to inform and educate people about the relevant facts from science and why those facts are important. Number 4 is to influence public opinion about public opinions and behaviors and policy preferences. So again, taking our science and using it to impact public perceptions, public behaviors, population behaviors, and to influence policy. And then lastly, to ensure that there are diversity of perspectives to create solutions to complex issues. So as we think about developing our social media presence, just some of the, basic communication principles are important. So thinking about who is our audience. And I don't use social media in my professional role very often. I do have a Twitter account, and that's really where I go to look for information that's relevant to nursing science, science generally, and public health. And that's where I want to think about disseminating my information. I tend to use like Instagram more for staying connected with my family and looking at really pretty pictures. And so as we're thinking about how we're going to use social media for our scholarship, thinking about who is our audience, is the audience policymakers, is the audience the general public? We know that there's tremendous misinformation around vaccines, for example. So as nurses who are the most trusted profession, how can we disseminate information to help counter misinformation about science and about health, to help with those population behaviors? Also thinking about, why is our research important? And we know why it's important to us, but how do we distill it down for the general public? Like, why should they care about our research? What problem does it address? And really getting at that, so what, from the audience perspective, why should I care? When we are working with our scientists in our Clinical and Translational Science Institute, they meet with our patient and community partners group to pitch their ideas for research. And that's, from that perspective, it's about trying to get funded. And we tell the scientists who are going to be meeting with our group that they need to remember that the patient community partners are taxpayers. And so from that perspective, they have a vested interest in this research. Now, we may be looking at using social media for disseminating the results of our research, how we want to translate that research into practice. But again, thinking about it from that audience perspective, as a policymaker, why should I care about your research on health inequities in breast cancer? So really thinking about who the audience is and why should they care to craft those messages. So I'm going to turn it over to Frank.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Peltzer. I have some true or false questions for you guys. If you wouldn't mind participating in the chat, you can just put a T for true or an F for false. So let me know what you guys think. Here's the first one. Nurse scholars can have more of an impact with their research by also disseminating scholarship via social media. What do you guys think? Awesome. I'm seeing this chat blow up with a bunch of T's for true. That is so true. Another one for you guys, and you can just keep the T's and F's coming. Nurses should avoid using social media. What do you think? Awesome. You guys are so intelligent. Oh my gosh. Here's another one. There is a need for nurses to enhance their skills in using social media. Beautiful. You guys are getting 100% so far. I'm not surprised. How about this one? Nurses are immune from trolls when using social media. Excellent. Nurses are unfortunately not immune from trolls. Trolls are everywhere, and we're going to talk more about that. What about this one? Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and LinkedIn are platforms used by nurses to disseminate scholarly information. That's it. Great job. That is true. I don't know if there are any other social media platforms that you guys can think of, or if we included all of them. Does anybody have any other examples? You could type it in the chat if you can think of one. Some days I think I know them all, and then another one shows up. That's how we're living, right? All right, let's go to the next slide. I have one more true or false question for you guys. And this kind of gets to why we created this webinar to begin with. Some individuals who have spent their lives devoted to generating science may not feel adequately trained to engage in social media based technique or sufficiently rewarded by traditional tenure and promotion processes. What do you guys think about that one? True, true, true. Very, very true. That is why we are hosting this webinar for you guys today. We want to see if we can at least get you to feel at least a little bit trained to engage in social media so that you might be able to participate in disseminating your scholarship in a unique way. So today's session, we are mostly going to focus on the platform of Twitter. And we're going to talk about developing and enhancing your skills on Twitter. So a few things I wanted to go through with you all today is number one, how do we even create a Twitter handle to begin with? How do we get a username? Who do we follow once we're on Twitter? What does that even mean? Who do we follow? And then making the tweet. I'm sure a lot of us have heard this word tweet, and it sounds kind of silly, but when we disseminate or speak across Twitter, what we are doing is we are making a tweet. So I wanted to walk through step by step with you guys how to create a Twitter handle, again, following and who to follow, and then making your first tweet if you have never made one before. So just real quick, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind typing in the chat, has anybody not have a Twitter account? Just type yes if you have one, no if you don't have one. So far, it's looking 50-50 for the most part. I'm seeing a handful of no's, I'm seeing a handful of yeses. So for those of you who have a Twitter account, some of this might be a little bit extremely basic sounding to you, but for those of you who do not have a Twitter, I would love to show you step by step how to make a Twitter account and some of these other basic functionalities of using Twitter.
So do you want me
So
to
the
stop
first,
sharing?
yeah, I think if I share, it might override. Let's give it a try here. All right. So first things first, guys, I am just simply at twitter.com. Feel free to follow along, or I believe this meeting is being recorded and you can always watch it again in the near future should you need it for reference. So this is the main screen of Twitter as soon as we navigate to twitter.com. And we have a few different options for getting started using Twitter. You can sign up with Google, sign up with Apple, sign up with phone or email. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to click sign up with phone or email. You can type in a phone number or one of your email accounts. I don't know about you guys, but I have like at least 5 email accounts. So you can use any one of those. And then this is the pop-up that comes up as soon as I click create an account. It wants you to choose a Twitter name and it wants your phone number and date of birth. You can click use email instead if you're not comfortable sharing your phone number. So I clicked email and I'm gonna go ahead and type a Twitter name here. So let's do MNRS does Twitter. Oh, it doesn't want me to use the word Twitter. Maybe it'll let me do it without the R. And then an email address. Email has already been taken. So I'm going to try a couple other different ones here because I do have one Twitter account or two. Already got that one. Bear with me here, guys. And now you guys are probably wondering, geez, how many Twitter accounts does this guy have? Let's try a phone number. I don't have my phone number memorized, so I'm just pulling it up quickly. All right, phone number. And date of birth. All right, here we go. Are you all following with me? I'm gonna go ahead and click next. And it's asking if Twitter can have your permission to track where you see Twitter content across the web. And it's saying Twitter uses this data to personalize your experience. This web browsing history will never be stored with your name, email, or phone number. So up to you if you want to leave this checkbox marked or not. I'm just going to leave it marked and click next. And then now this is the confirmation page of creating your account. And it's saying by signing up, you agree to the terms of service and privacy policy, including cookie use. Others will be able to find you by email or phone number when provided. So if you would like, you are welcome to click any of these blue hyperlinks to explore these further. But I've done this process once or twice or 3 times before, and I'm just going to go ahead and click sign up. And next screen is asking to verify my phone number. So they're going to text a verification code to the number that I typed in, and I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Now I'm looking down at my phone to see my code, and I'm typing in my code and clicking next. And it's asking for a password. So go ahead and type a password. And now a profile picture. So if you want, you can put a picture of yourself or something else or nothing at all. You can simply have a blank slate here. I'm just going to go ahead and click skip for now. And we have an opportunity to type a bio about ourselves. It's very common for people to describe any professional affiliations they have, or perhaps using some of the credentials after our name as nurses. You're welcome to type anything or nothing in this section just to allow other folks on Twitter to get to know you a little bit better. And then it's asking yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, remind me, there's a limited amount of space for your bio. So it's important to maybe highlight what you want people to know about you, right?
Yeah, I believe it is 160 characters. So thank you for bringing that up there. You won't be able to put your whole CV in there, but definitely pick out some of the most pertinent pieces that you might want folks to know. And again, you could leave it blank if you'd like. So let's see, I am going to say that I like outdoors and food. You're welcome to choose anything else. Let's do science as well, because we have a lot of nurse scientists in the room here. I'm going to click next. And then it's asking if there's anything specifically that you want to see within these categories. I'm just going to click a few just for fun: weather, cooking, dogs, and NBA. Let's do that. Next. And then some suggested follows. They pulled this information just from those previous few clicks that I made. They came up with some choices of folks that I might want to follow. And I am not going to follow any of these people for right now, just so I can show you guys how to use this. And then again, it's giving us a option for choosing our username. And I'm going to do MNRS does Twitter. Asking if I would like to save the password. I'll say, sure, why not? Go ahead and save it. So here we are. I made it to the main page, and I'm just going to navigate to the chat to see if anybody's saying anything. Does anybody have any questions or comments about where we are at right now?
Looks like we're good, Frank.
Please type yes if you actually just made your first Twitter account. I'd love to know if somebody just did it. It's okay if nobody did. All right, so I'm not seeing any yeses yet, and that is totally fine. That is totally okay. Let me show you guys some basic functions here in Twitter. So one thing that we can do is we can search for people within Twitter just using the search function right on the left-hand column. So for example, if I wanted to find MNRS and follow them so that we could see tweets from them in the future and we could connect with them, I'm gonna have to type in their Twitter handle. And the search bar is pretty smart. It's similar to Google. I'm just gonna go ahead and type MNRS. And look, the very first one is the username we just created. Then there is Marcus Smith, which I'm not going to follow that person, but I see MNRS at Midwest Nursing. This is who I was looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and click MNRS. Here is our wonderful and beautiful MNRS Twitter page. And if I want information, if I want to connect, if I want to hear every time that they tweet, all I'm going to do is click this follow button right here. And I would love to follow them. I just gave MNRS another follower. So that is how you connect with somebody within Twitter. And we do have some examples of other people who you might want to follow. Thank you, Julianne, for just adding MNRS. Really appreciate that. Some other examples of folks who you might want to follow. So we did Midwest Nursing. We have myself and we have Dr. Peltzer. I should probably zoom in a little bit on this so you guys can see it better. We have JNP now, the Journal of Nurse Practitioners. We have the American Nurses Association, ANA Nursing World. We have AACN Nursing, at DNP Journal, American Heart Association, CDC Gov. And I think it's important to connect with your friends and colleagues as well.
And I'm wondering, Dr. Schaller, if folks on our webinar today feel comfortable, would you want to share your Twitter handle in the chat? Because I know that there's
Definitely.
probably a lot of you that I would love to follow and I'm not.
Yeah, I think that's really cool idea, Jill. If anybody feels comfortable sharing their Twitter handle in the chat, go ahead and do that. And then we could use this as an opportunity for all of us to perhaps connect on Twitter and maybe get some new followers. We got the Trach Pro. That's awesome. Thank you, Lee. Susan, thank you. Valerie, awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Julianne. All right, so everybody should have at least one new Twitter follower after today if this is something that you engage with. Thanks for sharing, guys. So I'm going to navigate back to my Twitter home because what I would like to do is show you guys how to make a tweet, how to create a tweet if you have not done this before. So all I did was I clicked the home page on the left column, this little home icon, and there's a prompt at the top of the page that says, "What's happening?" This is going to be an opportunity for you to send out a tweet. So I have my cursor over what's happening. I'm going to click what's happening. And at this point, it gives me an open text box to tweet or text whatever I want to tweet. So maybe my first tweet will say, "This is my first tweet." Woohoo! Lots of exclamation points. Something else we can do additional to this tweet, and I think it's a best practice to do this when using Twitter, is I would always try to include either an image or a GIF, a GIF, when doing your tweet, because it helps it to stand out other than just plain text. And I believe it will allow your tweet to have a little bit more engagement from other folks who are using Twitter. So I am going to choose a GIF by clicking this icon right underneath. And you can type anything you want under this GIF bar. And I'm just feeling kind of silly, so I'm gonna type silly and see what shows up. And we've got all kinds of silly faces showing up here. I'm gonna type this guy with the crazy eyes. And this GIF will play as soon as I send it out. And we might be wondering, how do we tag people in this tweet? How, like if you want somebody to specifically see this tweet, you want them to be notified by email or within the Twitter app that this was sent, what you're gonna do is you are going to type an @ symbol and then simply the Twitter handle. So I'm typing my Twitter handle, and as I was typing, it was auto-populating down here. And you're gonna wanna go ahead and click the name. So I just tagged Frank Shaler Jr. myself. We'll tag MNRS at Midwest Nursing so that they're notified and they're tagged on this tweet. Additionally, what we can do is use hashtags, and you might be wondering, what are hashtags? So hashtags, what they do is they categorize your tweet into a specific word. So for example, if we typed the hashtag and then the word nursing, if we clicked on that hyperlink, and it's a little bit lower down here, I have my cursor over at hashtag nursing, this would take me to anything within Twitter where somebody used the hashtag nursing, whether that is for good or for bad or anything in between. So what I might do here is throw in the hashtag MNRS webinar series, because that is the hashtag we chose for hosting the webinars for you guys. So those are some of the most basic functionalities within Twitter. And there is also a little, looks like a time clock or circle down in the corner here. I'm hovering my cursor over. This is telling me that since there is 25% of the circle filled up, that I put 25% of the characters allowed within my tweet. So if I keep typing, that circle is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tweet this out. This is going to be my first tweet. Can you show how to tag again? Yes, definitely, Julianne. So to tag, you're going to want to put in the @ symbol first. Okay. And then after that, you are going to start typing who you want to tag. So maybe I am going to tag the CDC just for fun, cdc.gov. So as soon as I start typing after the @ it's going to auto-populate who Twitter thinks you are trying to tag. So I'm going to click at cdc.gov, and now there is a tag there. Any other questions so far? It's good that you guys are just asking this as we go along. I'm trying to pay attention to the chat as well.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, are there too many hashtags, or like, how do we kind of figure out what's the appropriate number of hashtags to really maximize our reach?
Yeah, for sure. So what I would recommend, and this is just a recommendation, I would try to keep the hashtags to 3 or 4 maximum per each tweet. And the reason that I'm recommending this is because if you have a tweet and it has like 15 to 20 different hashtags within the tweet, it can appear a little bit like spam. It appears a little bit unorganized, and it's hard even for the Twitter user to visualize and see, like, okay, what are they trying to tag here? There's a lot going on this tweet. So that's why I'm going to recommend limiting to 3 or 4 or less if possible. Does that answer that question?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it seems like depending on our audience, then we might choose the hashtag. So if we are wanting to appeal to maybe more of the general public, we may not use hashtags like MNRS webinar series or nursing science. We may use terms that would be more useful for the general public, right?
Yep. Anytime you send out a tweet, it's sort of going to go out to the general public. But if we're putting hashtags on here, what that does is it helps categorize the tweet. So if a Twitter user wanted to see, okay, what's all involved in this hashtag, they could do that. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. I'm going to first click this blue tweet button so that my first tweet goes out. And boom, there it goes. It's live with some crazy eyes. It's really silly. So for example, this hashtag MNRS webinar series, if I click this blue hyperlink, it is going to bring me to everything within Twitter where somebody used the hashtag MNRS webinar series. So I clicked it and it looks like our handle MNRS used it 15 minutes ago. Also used it on November 2nd, October 29th. There's my silly googly eyes, and it just keeps going and going with any tweet that was sent with the hashtag MNRS webinar series. Okay. So it just helps categorize the tweet is the main take home point there.
And are the tags included in the character limit?
They are included in the character limit, yes. So they don't allow you to go they don't allow you to go too crazy with the characters, but there is a workaway around that. And I can show you guys that here as well. So I'm going back to home. I'm clicking what's happening, and I want to send out another tweet. And let's say that the tweet that I want to send has way too many characters. So I'm going to copy and paste some sentences that I see in the chat here. Maybe. Okay, maybe not. Let's see. So I'm just going to go ahead and start typing here, just so I can show you guys what this looks like. And my bar right here, the circle with the blue, it's filling up quickly as I add characters. And it's going to get to a point where it says, whoa, 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 hold on there, buddy. You have way too many characters within this tweet. It's too big. So right now, I just got an error message. It says -6. It says I have 6 too many characters to put in this tweet. Okay. And it highlights in red here the 6 characters that went over. So it let me put the T, but it wouldn't let me put the witter on the end there. So I have a workaround for this. What you can do is at the beginning of your tweet, let's say that you have 3 tweets that you want to put in a row worth of material. What you can do is simply put a 1/3 to allow your other fellow Twitter users to know, hey, this is tweet number 1 out of 3. And it's still not going to let me tweet because it says I have too many characters. I'm going to back up here and erase this last sentence that is going over the character limit. I'm going to click tweet to send that out. And then in the next one here, what I'm going to do is I am going to do 2-3. And then you can go ahead and insert a lot more characters so that you're able to keep this going. So there's 2 out of 3. And then finally, other Twitter users will say, okay, this is the last tweet. Here it comes. It's going to be profound. It's going to be the exact same sentence that he's already said 15 times. And there it is. So I was able to have a workaround to avoid getting an error message on their character limit.
That is really helpful. So if you have a longer story to share, you can share it on Twitter by using that approach.
Definitely. Yep. There's always going to end up being a workaround. And this is the most common way that I see folks do that, because we have a lot to say, right? And sometimes we can't capture it all within that character limit.
Yep.
So I think it's important to know some of the workarounds.
There's also a question, it can be hard to follow tweets when a second person retweets and comments on that first tweet. How can we follow those threads?
So I think the best way to go about that is so anytime somebody sends out a tweet, there may be several links that go along with it. So I'm gonna see if I can find an example here on this timeline that Twitter just gave me. I'm gonna click on this one. No, that's not working. So what you might have to do is click some of the links within the tweet in order to get back to that original tweet. And it's not always easy. It's going to take some practice and some playing around with navigating Twitter before you can get to that original tweet. It's hard for me to kind of put this in words. I wish I had an example on the screen here to help answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, you're welcome. And it looks like somebody else says, how do you forward a tweet? So maybe somebody did a tweet and you are thinking, wow, that is profound. I want to share that. I want to forward it. I want other people, I want my friends and colleagues to potentially see this tweet. So here is one of a beautiful dog. I don't know who this is, but what I want to do is I think I want to share this dog. I want to forward this so that folks who follow me on Twitter are able to see this. And you have a couple different ways of doing this. If you click this green retweet button, I'm trying to move my cursor around where it is. It almost looks like a recycling icon. This will, if you click retweet right there, I know you didn't see much happen on the screen, but it just sent that to my timeline and to anybody else that I'm following. So if I go back to my home, I'm going to click on my profile icon and we're going to see this dog. Look at that. There it is. So I just forwarded that tweet, or I just sent it out to everybody. I wanted everybody to see that cool dog. There's one other way we could go about this. What I could do, instead of clicking this retweet button, I could click the reply button. It looks like a little chat or comment box. And this allows the Twitter user to potentially add some hashtags, potentially tag some individual friends, or to comment on the dog. So what I'm gonna say is asking me to tweet my reply. And I said, what a beautiful dog. And then maybe I want to do hashtag dogs of Twitter, just for fun. And maybe I want to tag Dr. Jill Biden. Why not? I'm just showing you guys some examples here. Hit reply. And then now if I go back to my main Twitter page, and you do that again by clicking on your profile picture, even if it's a blank slate like I have here. So I go home. I'm going to click my profile page, and then here it is again. I'm just reading in the chat here. Okay, so somebody asked the question, I see opinions are mine or my own on several people's Twitter bios. Is that an important thing to do if you identify where you work or study? That is a great question, Diana. Thank you for asking that question. So I personally don't do that, but I do my best when I participate in Twitter to maybe not participate in things that can be very emotionally or politically charged, but maybe other folks would use Twitter to participate in those things, and that's totally fine. So I personally don't have a bio that says these tweets are my own, these opinions are my own, but I also see that as well, Diana. And I actually wonder the same question. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on that question, or a comment on that question. But again, it's not something that I do, but I guess I could see why somebody might want to do that.
I will just quickly comment as somebody who is seen as relatively radical and my research ideas are not exactly mainstream. I feel like
Sure.
it might be an important thing to do just so
Sure.
that there's clarity around this is my ideas and opinion, and it does not reflect anything in one way or the other on where I work or go to school. So I'm going to add it.
I was going to add, thank you, Diana. I was going to add that if you include in your bio where you work, and I've seen that for a number of neuroscientists, I think then they do include that that note in their bio that these are their opinions, so that it's separate. They're very clear that what they're tweeting is their own personal ideas, thoughts, opinions, and not reflective on the organization. So if you don't include your bio or your organization, you may not need to have that little clause.
I think that was a wonderful comment and recommendation, Diana. Thank you so much for sharing that. I guess to me personally, I myself just kind of assume like, hey, Diana, if you were going to send out a tweet, I'm like, that's coming from Diana. That's not coming from necessarily a specific affiliation. But again, maybe just to cover some bases, it might be an important sentence to add within your bio. So thank you again for sharing that. All right, let's see what else we have here for you guys. It's 12:43. We're chugging on along here. Dr. Pelter, do you mind sharing your screen again, starting on slide number 13?
Yes, I'm happy to. Okay, great. Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what I feel like Twitter can be used for nowadays, I feel like it can be used as a tool for promoting scholarship, and it also enhances the visibility of your nursing science all around. I think it's an awesome and new adjuvant that you can use to share. And I wanted to share some best practices that I have found for when using Twitter. I talked to you guys a little bit about using an image or a GIF within the tweet to enhance the visibility so that it doesn't just look like a bunch of words. I think it's also important as well to try to use some descriptive language within your tweet and tag people who you feel like are involved. The more hashtags you use, again, trying to limit it to maybe 3 or 4, and the more people that you tag using that @ symbol and then their name, I think that's really important best practice for using Twitter and trying to disseminate some scholarship or research. You'll want to tag any related organizations or granting agencies involved in your work as well, if that is applicable. If you have, say, a publication within a specific journal, the vast majority of these journals, they have Twitter accounts, and I think it's important to tag the Twitter accounts as well so that they get some recognition. And then I think, again, using hashtags to join the right conversation. Some of this is kind of hard to explain up front, but the more that you use and practice using Twitter, you'll see that there are some specific hashtags that folks will use related to specific topics. You can do the next slide. Okay, QR codes. I think these are so cool. These are so awesome. So there has been a boost of these, I feel like, since the pandemic has started. For example, if I were to go out to a restaurant to eat right now, a lot of people will have a QR code to use for, say, ordering a drink or ordering your food in order to help with some infection control measures. So there's another way that we as nurses or nurse scientists can use a QR code to our advantage for helping to disseminate our scholarship. So if you guys would like, pull out your cell phone right now. Go ahead and pull it out. you're going to navigate to the camera. And some of you maybe already know how to do this and you're 5 steps ahead of me. Pull out your camera like you're going to take a picture of this QR code that you see on the screen. And if I am going to take a picture of this QR code, I have a link that's showing up. And it says jucm.com. Click that link on your phone. And what it should have done is just navigated to, this is an article that I was able to have published within the Journal of Urgent Care Medicine. It goes right to their web exclusive version of this article. So you might be wondering, how could this be useful to me as a nurse scientist? One area where I have seen this, and I think it is so cool, is I have seen folks who are doing poster presentations or even within social media platforms, they will get this QR code either embedded on their actual poster, or they will put it within, say, a Facebook post, a Twitter post, a Snapchat, TikTok, all of the above. This is an opportunity for you to better disseminate your scholarship. And you might be thinking, well, Frank, how did you do that? How did you create a QR code? It's really simple, guys. If you just navigate to www.qr-code-generator.com, the link's right there on the screen. This allows you to create a QR code specifically for the link you're trying to get to. So it will ask you some basic information. It will say, what do you want your QR code to look like? Do you want to embed an image in it? Do you just want it to be simple black and white pixels like you see on the screen? And it gives you an opportunity to insert a web address as well. So when folks go to look at that QR code, it navigates them to that web address. So I think that is the most important area where I have seen the QR code used for nurses. But I just wanted to briefly share that with you guys as an additional tool that you could use to disseminate your scholarship and awesome ideas. Is it free of cost? Yes, it is 100% free. I made this QR code a week or two ago when I was working on this presentation, and the grand total cost for me was $0. The best cost, right? Any other questions on QR codes before we transition into our last piece of today's webinar, which is trolling? All right, I'm going to keep chugging along here. So trolling, what is trolling? I'm sure a lot of us, if not all of this, have dealt with this in the past. I have a quick question here. No expiration of the QR code once generated, and that's from Lee. No, I don't think these QR codes ever expire. As far as I know, they do not expire. I think that's a great question, but it might be important to just double check your QR code before disseminating it to be sure that the link does work and that it has not expired. Great question. So trolling, what is trolling? Trolling is when somebody on the internet is perhaps a little bit bored, maybe perhaps a little bit nasty, and they want to come in to your social media presence and maybe try to upset you or to bring on some emotions that you don't want to deal with and you don't want to feel. I think these people really are just extremely bored is what it comes down to. And I wanted to give you guys some ways that you could overcome trolling. How can you get past folks who troll? I've had people troll me on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just random people show up and they might start typing some nasty comments. Okay, I think they're trying to see if they can get some kind of emotional response out of me. So what are some things we can do in these circumstances? I have a few ideas for you guys. There's one thing, and this is my favorite one. This is what I seem to just sort of be an expert at for whatever reason. You can just simply ignore the trolls, okay? And for some people, that might be impossible or take too much energy, and it can inspire some very real feelings, feeling upset, feeling hurt, things of that nature. And we'll talk a little bit about what we can do if that were to be the case. I think it's important to establish some kind of policy, whether that's within your organization's webpage or Twitter page or any social media page. And you could just put a blanket statement out there of, let's be respectful, let's be adults, let's be friendly. I know some of it sounds just so elementary and basic, but guys, there are trolls out there everywhere, and they are looking to, again, inspire a negative emotional response within you. Maybe you're thinking, you know what? I see this troll, I see their comment, and it appears that they are trying to spread some misinformation, for example. You might want to respond with real facts in those circumstances, because everybody on these social platforms, they can see what the troll said. So you could go the one route of just simply ignoring them, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to respond with cold, hard facts so that folks can see that I know what I'm talking about and that these are the real facts. I think that's another example of what you can do to deal with trolls. This is sort of important just in anything in life, and it's super basic. Think before you speak, or think before you tweet. It's easy to respond quickly with those lightning fingers on a text message or a tweet or all of the above. But if possible, if you can take a timeout so that you can stay professional, I think that is important advice. A couple other ways you could manage with trolls are, maybe you're going to try to diffuse the troll by using some humor. Maybe you're going to respond back to something that's kind of silly or funny, or you're just going to go ahead and try and kill them with kindness. I think that's an important tidbit as well in terms of dealing with trolls. I think it's also important to consider taking a screenshot or recording what exactly happened, because maybe you need to share this with your boss or your organization, or perhaps authorities if this was something that was threatening, or things of that nature. So I think recording some of these, getting some documentation might be important for next steps as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? Some social media accounts, they have the option of adding moderators. So for example, our MNRS Twitter handle, there are perhaps a couple or few people who have access to that username and password to perhaps go in and moderate tweets to ensure that maybe if a troll were to show up, that you could perhaps respond with facts, you could perhaps try to report that tweet, you could try to block or ban the person. Standing up for yourself is important when a troll arrives. And again, if you think this troll is being threatening or unlawful, I think it's important to report to authorities or contact police as you see it fit. I hope it doesn't escalate to that level. I've luckily never been in an experience where I had to contact police because of a troll, but it's something that I want to at least throw out there so that you can consider. Maybe you'll take a timeout from that social media platform. Maybe the troll rubbed you the wrong way and you just said, you know what? I am going to deactivate my Twitter for a little while. I am going to deactivate my Facebook for a while. I am just so heated and fed up with what this person said that I need some time off. I think that's important. If you can recognize that those emotions are brewing, I think it's totally fine in most circumstances to go ahead and just take a time out, whether it's a day, a week, a month, a season, all of that I think would be important. There is also the consideration of making your social media profile for friends only. So maybe you're not going to add folks who you don't know. Maybe you're only going to add trusted colleagues and friends in an effort to decrease the chances that you have to deal with a troll online. You could just simply log off. If you have a troll who shows up, they say something, they inspire some negative emotions, just click log off and walk away. It's another option. And if you are dealing with some emotions that are just keeping you too heated in the moment, or they're very upsetting, which can definitely happen, I think it's important to just reach out and contact somebody who you trust to sort of navigate those emotions. Sometimes it's really important to just get off of our skin what is bothering us, talk to somebody about it, so that you can help navigate what the next best steps might be. All right, next slide. I think we're getting pretty close to the end here, guys. It's 12:57. Any questions so far before I hand it back over?
Well, they know we're at 12:57. So I'll just go through these super quickly. This is just about creating your message when we're thinking about, again, who is our audience, and distilling the information in a way that's understandable to everyone. So these are some tips from scientists about communicating with the general public. One is that we create a message that's simple but not simplistic, that we're not talking down to people. And this is something that we continue to reinforce with our scientists and our CTSI here, is when they're talking with community and patient partners, they are talking with folks who are intelligent and who are experts in their own right. And so it's just making sure that we have a common language. And we use the phrase living room language a lot. We want to talk about our science in living room language rather than scientific language. Putting it into context, focusing our message, again, what is the core message that we want to provide, and say that and only that. Using vivid language or and using metaphors and analogies are really helpful to tell the story that's generally about really complex principles, complex topics. And so if we can use metaphors and analogies, that can help folks understand what it is that we're wanting to convey. And then again, thinking about what is the so what of this information that I want to get out through social media. Why is this important? Oops. I can't seem to advance the slides. So I think that's it. I am going to stop sharing so that I can get a PDF into the chat of our presentation. Any questions or comments?
Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us this afternoon. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter if you'd like to connect, or if you have any other questions or comments, happy to stay in touch with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.